All right, so today we're going to dive into issues obviously that are happening in Israel. But one of the things and one of the angles that I want to focus on is the amount of crypto FUD that is starting to occur. And this is important because it's going to start to break down why you need to pay attention and why crypto is an important effort in a lot of these issues that happen globally. So we'll break all that down for you guys today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. All right, I want to open up here with an article from Quartz, and this was their headline. Came out yesterday. Cryptocurrency fueled the Hamas war machine. Bitcoin Tether funneled millions of dollars to terror group. You can kind of see a little bit of the statement here. I thought was probably the most ridiculous. Its role as a source of finance for terror groups hasn't always been made available on the Web3 pitch decks. This is kind of that approach that I think mainstream media is bringing out, when in reality what's happening is crypto is one of the fuels that actually help a lot of these efforts to sustain livelihoods, to sustain entities, businesses, families, etc., that go out there. So I want to welcome into the show Ben Samocha, who is with Crypto Aid Israel, and we're going to break it down. But Ben, thanks for stopping in on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
All right, so Ben, I know you guys are, really obviously in a very rough spot right now, but I want to learn more about Crypto Aid Israel. I'm going to go over to your website, Stand With Israel, where you guys can, of course, do donations. Pretty easy to do that by just going over and visit cryptoaidisrael.com. You'll be able to jump to it. First, Ben, tell me a little about what you guys are trying to do here. How are the funds being used? Kind of just give me a rundown of what you guys are all about.
Yeah, of course. So essentially, we are a group of volunteers from Israel, from individuals to companies with big names like Market Across and Fireblocks and Iron Blocks and Collider Ventures and all these companies that have come together in order to create this operation of arranging donations for Israelis. We have four primary goals for what we do. One is to support the people in the south of Israel and the rebuilding of their lives. Essentially, the headline today of now that we can assess the damage that has been done to the settlements and the kibbutzim and the cities around Gaza Strip, they're completely destroyed. Houses are burnt. An incredible amount of bodies were found, and they need huge assistance. I just got off the phone this morning with an organization that needs 1,000,000 shekels worth. That's $300,000 worth of funds just to relocate its population because the bombing doesn't stop and the terrorists never stop coming. So that's just one example. We want to help the families of the dead and the missing. So currently it's estimated that there are officially at least 150 people that are missing and assumed kidnapped by Hamas and are in the Gaza Strip. We don't know dead or alive. And we want to be able to move funds towards them and help them process the situation, whether if it's for shelter, food, and obviously psychological support. We also are in collaboration with Zaka to help with medical emergency equipment and whatever we can provide on that front. And we have one more thing we want to accomplish, and that is support for the families of soldiers and reservists. We lost in the hundreds so far, and more than 300,000 Israelis already went to the military as reserves. So we want to be able that now that when both mom and dad went somewhere to help protect Israel and help fight our fights. So that's our purpose. For that, we have established a network, a flow of funds, just like we know in the crypto spirit, a multi-sig MPC-based wallet with Fireblocks and with support of Fireblocks. We have Iron Blocks providing cybersecurity protection on the Web3 infrastructure phase, and we have many cyber volunteers helping protect our website. We also established amazing partnerships with very big groups of big four companies, Fiat off-ramp providers, etc., so that we'll be able to bring in the funds to Israel. And from there, we have established a finance committee that will allocate the funds to the nonprofits we discussed. and potentially to individual families that are in need. So far, we have managed to raise more than $90,000 within 48 hours, maybe a bit more. That's incredible, but there's so much to do, and we need this support. We need this help. The conversation today was devastating, and it's just one of so many horrible stories that we're hearing.
All right, so obviously a lot of companies have come to the aid here to get this up and running. Interesting that you guys have had to put so much effort in the cybersecurity side of things, because that is another area that most likely could get attacked, in a scenario of especially something that is providing aid to Israel, in the source of being able to kind of jump into some of the things you mentioned here. I was looking at your Twitter account, Attention on Support of Israel. New ERC20 wallets were added to the website. So you guys started with a couple of different addresses there. I noticed the one, when we were kind of diving into the research, it appeared to be Sandbox as a source. So I'm kind of curious, what was the reason? Was it just kind of early stage as you were building it and the addresses had to change? And are all the funds being tracked between the two addresses? How are you guys kind of organizing the accounting side?
Yeah, so everything is organized within our Fireblocks vaults in collaboration with the finance committee. The reason we changed the addresses is because we want to create separate flows of funds that are regulated. And for that, we are constantly in communication with different government entities and regulators in order to ensure that the transition of money to Israel goes smoothly. Eventually, Israel is considered a country that is relatively hard to bring in money from crypto to within, especially when we're talking about anonymous donations, at least until up to the sum of $10,000. And that is why we had to make that decision. We announced it. We did it the right way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good for you guys. Now, I look at other efforts that have been utilizing crypto in general, and obviously we have unfortunately a good example being of what's happened in Ukraine. Ukraine did something that was kind of interesting here. This was a report from United 24, the National Bank of Ukraine, where they actually started tracking. I'm going to go to page 9 of this thing. The reason I wanted to bring this up was they got into the efforts in which a lot of that crypto that was utilized and or raised in these programs where we had a lot of donations, et cetera. But they go into the whole scenario of showing what it was used for, all that, et cetera, good accounting. Are you guys planning on doing something like that with Stand With Israel?
Absolutely. We have 14, I think, at this point, group of volunteers that are operating on every aspect of this voluntary organizations, whether if it's marketing and social media and public relations, whether it's cybersecurity, and whether if it's the work we do both with the nonprofits and with individual families that we want to assist. As part of our establishment of the finance committee, we have also established a policy of what is the information we need to gather from each nonprofit and from each individual families. And our goal is to obviously publish this, not only because we want to be very transparent with our bank and with the regulator, but we want to be transparent with our donors. That is why we also chose very familiar and recognized nonprofits to work with, which we are hoping to announce very, very soon. These are very big names, and we'll be able to track the funds to the bottom line where it goes, and we'll be able to share it so that we can do it. Just in the meantime, while we are establishing our banking connections and making the flow of funds easy, we have already managed to help many people by providing them with shelter, by providing them with food and games for the kids and psychological support. So we are already receiving the proof from the ground of how much impact we provide for these families that in this case specifically hid 36 hours inside the emergency room while Hamas terrorists were inside their home until they finally were rescued and evacuated to Tel Aviv. So that's what we're up to. Yeah.
All right. So was it hard with because, as we know in general, I think on-ramps have been really tightened down around the world around crypto. Was that a difficult achievement there within Israel to get that done so quickly? How were you guys able to do that?
Yeah, so we are in talks with different regulators and with different banks, and we are establishing the connections. Some of them have already begun working, but we haven't processed any transaction yet from the wallet until we have it all figured out. That's a policy decision. So we are in talks with every party involved, not just on the donation front and the flow of funds on that angle, but also in coordinating efforts to bring down donation campaigns to Hamas, which we also play a role given our location in the local ecosystem. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say our location, is that the individuals involved, including myself, are we have large communities, we have large content platforms. So people come to us and they tell us, listen, we saw this donation campaign for Hamas. Let's bring it down. And we are able to establish these connections with the police, the Israeli anti-money laundering authority, to anyone that can help. So there's also a group of civil volunteers taking place, which is essentially what the most I can say about it, because we want to stay anonymous in terms of our operations and how we do
Right.
the things that we do. So that's also happening the same time.
So, a couple of things here, because there's a lot of FUD that has circled around crypto in general, around especially around war efforts, and I think that's one of the things we're trying to do today is dispel this. This was an article from AJC on the amount of money that's going into Hamas in general, and even if you look at where the money is coming from, this is a good example. This is in 2020. The U.S. State Department reported that Iran had provided more than 100 million in annual money to Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So it's coming from everywhere. So obviously you're fighting that situation with what you know there in the region, but it's also starting to kind of move into spaces. Right here, I was looking at this New York Post article. This was between August 21st and 23. Collectively, around 134 million in crypto, according to Israeli government seizures. This again was what was happening around these terrorists being back. Now, granted, you're getting both, you're seeing both crypto and traditional fiat going into this. The point is that with crypto, we actually are seeing the capability of freezing these assets, being able to do some things. Obviously, Israel had frozen crypto accounts belonging to Hamas, now in cooperation with Binance. So that is another good reason to example of how this can be utilized, especially in these efforts going forward. So I look at this and I think, well, this is going to be a way for exactly what you guys have done with Stand With Israel, be able to spin these up so quickly, be able to create transactions that are, somewhat, inexpensive, but more important, speedy, which is the problem that you have with traditional fiat that you cannot do, where crypto really jumps in and takes part of that. Have some of the organizations that you guys have been involved with that are traditional fiat or TradFi companies, have they been surprised at how fast this has been able to take place?
Yeah, obviously they all come aboard and they all allocate resources despite having their businesses working as usual, because most of them are also facing the international audience of clients, so they can't just stop everything, and they're allocating resources towards our campaign and helping us work out through these things. I think the main message here is to remember that freedom of money brings trade-offs, right?
Yeah,
So we can use the money for good purposes, like donations for what we perceive obviously as the moral case, and that is to protect people instead of to murder people brutally and to slaughter babies while they're sleeping. So there are trade-offs, and it allows you to have one thing like donating to the Freedom Truckers in Canada, which is what we would prefer to see as good. And it can also be used for bad purposes. Does that mean that crypto is bad? No. It means that people can use money for bad purposes, just like they
sure.
can use fiat for bad purposes.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, it's a good clickbait. People like clickbaits. That's what brings the audience.
Oh
So
yeah.
when you get a headline of frozen funds for Hamas or Hezbollah, that's an opportunity to remind the connection between crypto and bad stuff and create a negative image instead of talking with us, for example, and talking about the good things we can do with it. And just like Ukraine case or the Freedom Truckers case, that
Hmm.
didn't receive the same mainstream attention as it should have.
Yeah, I've been surprised at that. I guess I'm not really surprised at how mainstream media makes crypto out to be the bad guy sometimes and not really the fiat system, which is really the bad guy. I was looking further into the United 24 on how much they raised, and they do a pretty good job of tracking this, but around 483 million collected for the Ukraine efforts. And of that, and remember, they used to have actually the ability to submit crypto on and during those kinds of campaigns. And when you look at the amount of crypto that was done and raised, almost 225 million, part of this was ETH, kind of ironic, and then a lot of USDT there. But the point being is that when you look at that figure versus this 483 figure, this to me is significant. And that's why I think what you guys are doing is important, because it opens up an opportunity for money to move in quickly and be able to get to these efforts very fast. So, because right now speed matters, just like any kind of major issue like that. So, I just think it's a good, scenario for you guys that are watching out there to see what was able to happen with Ukraine could easily happen here with what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So,
It
definitely
also
a
it
big
also
deal.
shows Yeah, it also shows the faults of the current system, right? So, thing that I personally say also to colleagues and to regulators that I speak with on a daily basis when I educate them, right? The system has changed. It has changed to a place
Yep.
where you are first a criminal that you have to prove you are not. So instead of being innocent in a democracy that the
Hmm.
forces have to prove that you are a criminal. Things have changed so much so that we have lost our freedom, and we first need to prove that we are not doing something wrong instead of having the police or the regulators prove that we did something wrong and then persecute us. So, what I hope crypto will bring back is that freedom sense of how we want to use money, how fast we want to use money, how efficient we want to use money, and how important it is to have enforcement, to have strong enforcement too, one that it deters terrorist organizations like Hamas to do what they're doing, but it also needs to be done in the right way while preserving our freedoms.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give you guys an example of the amount of different organizations that are out there raising money through crypto efforts, this was ways that you could donate into the Ukrainian effort. And I would hope that this is probably going to end up happening with Israel. But these were all the companies that had crypto capable elements within their projects. A lot of these are very recognizable. So it's likely that we're going to see a lot of that coming into the defense of what's happening, obviously, there in Israel. So the point being is that there's a lot of these humanitarian efforts, and especially these aid efforts, that are now realizing the speed of crypto matters. It's also now can be a tool to use for good, just like anything else out there. So kudos to what you guys have been doing for sure. Lots of other things going on around this. The interesting thing I wanted to point to you, and I'm just kind of curious if you guys are looking to go this direction. There was a lot of charity that started to move toward like NFTs, obviously the ETH ecosystem. Are you seeing any signs of that? I know it's very early, but if you look at some of the examples, like Avatars for Ukraine was one example. This was a whole campaign that was built around, NFTs again for Ukraine. Is there something that maybe you guys see that where we might see Web3 and NFTs start to get involved with being able to support the efforts that you guys are doing?
Yes, so sir, there are early efforts by some community members, some contributors to establish some kind of an NFT collection, etc. It's very early stage, so I don't have too much information to provide. But definitely, we want to use every tool that's available for us. We want to do it in a way that meets the demand and the desire and connection of every donor out there, whether if it's by connecting with an NFT that gives you this mark, this stamp that you made this important donation. So why not?
Yep. Ben, thank you so much. I know your situation is dire there, so I appreciate you spending some time with us today here just to get the news out and also to kind of get this this website with crypto aid for Israel. You can just check it out right there. And go to their website. Check it
Thank
out
you.
if there's something there that can help you guys. But thanks so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. All right, so you guys are maybe listening in to the podcast side of things. Make sure and jump over to the YouTube channel. It's one of the best places to catch additional content. And you can subscribe and also like the video because that will, of course, work with the YouTube guides. It helps get those algorithms going and it does help the content get discovered. So that's one of the best things you can do for us. We put a lot of effort into this. Hopefully it's for you guys and just a little bit of love back is always helpful. If you guys want to catch me, it is out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.